video is brought to you by Letsynthesize Academy, the #1 place for practice-oriented courses for serious music producers.
Hey, Dan Larson here, welcome to the newest Synthesize Sunday episode, and today I want to talk about a highly requested topic, and that is machine gun basses, you know, the Tearout Dubstep kind of thing, like Marauda and Mastadon and stuff like that, something like this. Don't forget that, like always, you can download this sound from my Patreon, link is down below. Now let's jump into it. Okay, so for this sound I used the Mastadon track as a reference that sounds like this. And mine. Now the workaround is a little tricky, because you need to make a sort of percussion sound, like almost a snare sound. And that can be a little tricky in making it in Serum, but at the same time, when you know it, it's not that hard. So for that, you need a wavetable that you modulate with anything basically, that you use a pitch envelope for the attack and for the transient. That is very important. And when you made a snare or percussion sounding stuff, you add a comb filter that will make the tail of that. You distort it and add a very hardly distorted and saturated sub under it, like almost an 808. So this is how these sounds build up. So let me show you now the Serum preset that I made. Okay, so I turned off every effect, and in Serum I turned off everything so that I can build up from scratch this sound. Okay, so I chose a Monster 4 wavetable, and I use, but basically you can use any wavetable really, and that's the coolest part in this, because you choose a different wavetable and the whole sound changes. And I use LD41 to modulate the level, because, you know, we are talking about a machine gun effect, so we don't want to have full sustain, only some small decay basically. And a band plus minus warping mode, but again, you can use anything else that will change the sound drastically. And I use a saw wave, and I modulate it with oscillator A. Now, the main part here is to create a sort of percussion or snare sound that we want to add a comb filter to it and add some tonality with that. So this is the main goal here, and it is very, very cool, because we basically almost achieved that. As you can see, I used 3 octaves higher on the saw wave, and I used 5 voices unison on Monster 4. So I added voices on the modulator only, so not on the carrier. So this way, my main sound is mono, but I have a very wide and very noisy kind of thing because of the voices here. Okay, let's add the sub oscillator, and that will be very important when you distort your sound, because the sub oscillator will add a very, very nice crunch to the whole sound when you distort it with this percussion sound that we just created with oscillator A and oscillator B. And that is all here, but there is a next thing I want to add, is a pitch bend on the beginning of the sound, so like making or creating a transient. As you can see, I'm using master tune as a destination. And our main sound, the snare basically, or the percussion, is done. Okay, so let's add a compressor, a distortion. So our sound is turning into a more noise kind of thing. I want to add some more voices to it and make the sound a lot wider. And here comes the magic trick, the equalizer, because the equalizer will turn the sound back into a plucky or a percussion kind of thing again. Okay, cool. And the comb filter will add the tail for the sound, and that will create a machine gun sounding kind of thing. Now let me show you what happens if I disable the sub. So as you can hear, it's very important to have the sub and not clicking on the direct out, because with the distortion, it has that very rumbly and crunchy kind of flow, and so it is very, very important, and at the same time it is very cool. Okay, but we need some more effects, like cutting the very lows and boosting the highs a little. And with some saturation to make the sound a little fatter and louder. But this again brings up more frequencies that we don't really need. And at this point I just wanted to match this sound with the 808. So this is why I went a little higher with the low cut, and I use a saturator at the end to basically just use it as a limiter. But with soft clip mode on, so the sound keeps the transients a lot easier. So this is the main sound. Obviously it needs the 808. If you want to learn more about heavy dubstep production, click here. It is very simple. What I did here is I took the MIDI from the machine gun track. So this is why I selected this machine gun, and the pre-effects just basically routes the MIDI to this track. I clicked on in instead of auto, and I don't need to copy the MIDI because this channel, the 808 channel, will automatically receive the MIDI information from the machine gun track. So altogether they sound this. Okay, and the 808 is very simple because I just use a sine waveform, and on the filter section I use a filter emulation, the PRD2 or PRD filter emulation, and I added some filter drive on 21 decibels and a soft shaper. Okay, and basically that's it in operator. I added an overdrive, a digital clip distortion, and a filter, a low pass filter, where I basically left only everything below 300 Hz. And I added a pitch and roll, but with these heavy effects you don't really hear that. By the way, this last tab is from my new raw glitch sound. I just added some choruses, an OTT, and some EQ at the end with the saturator. Okay, so this was it for now. If you enjoyed it, drop a thumbs up and drop a comment and share my videos, please. And if you want to download this sound, go to my Patreon, and see you guys next time. Peace!